At the time of independence, there were as many as 6 trade union centers in Zimbabwe. These merged to form the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions on 28 February 1981. Thus, in the first 5 years of independence, the relationship between ZANU-PF and ZCTU was largely paternalistic. After 1985, the ZCTU steered a more independent and increasingly confrontational position after the collapse of the ZANU-PF-linked leadership. The divide between the ZCTU and government widened when the former opposed attempts by the latter to introduce a one-party state in Zimbabwe. In the late 1980s, following the merger between the two parties, ZANU-PF and ZAP in 1987, the relationship was further strained following the introduction of the Economic Structural Adjustment Program, ESAP, in 1991. As the hardships arising from the market-based reforms deepened, government increasingly resorted to draconian measures to shore up its waning political support. As issues of governance deteriorated, the ZCTU increasingly became the torchbearer for alternative governance. The year 1997 marked the turning point in the political development of Zimbabwe. A record of 231 national and industrial strikes took place. Other civic organizations joined the ZCTU in decrying the deteriorating economic conditions and the marginalization of civic society through ESAP. Realizing that the crisis was deepening and that it was largely emanating from the issues of governance, the ZCTU, together with 40 other civic society groups, organized the Working People's Convention towards the end of February 1999, at which they agreed to form a broad-based movement to fight for political change. The new movement was mandated with promoting labor issues and bringing to the fore those issues which the government had failed to promote. A number of labor leaders and trade union activists were then tasked with mobilizing the masses to embark on a national sensitization campaign to drum up support for the new movement. This movement culminated in the formation of the opposition political party, the Movement for Democratic Change, on 9 September 1999 at Rufaro Stadium in Harare. For the past 37 years, and since the formation of the MDC, Zimbabwe has religiously held elections as provided for by the national constitution. Unfortunately, all these elections ended up being disputed because they were marred by allegations of violence, intimidation, vote buying, as well as vote rigging by election managing bodies. As Zimbabwe heads for what could be a do-or-die national election that has a serious bearing on the country's future, we realize that the change that the ZCTU has sought since the Working People's Convention has not materialized, and it is still a work in progress. There are signs that the country is once again heading for another contested plebiscite. This is because of the opaque way the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, ZEC, is managing elections. The Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, ZCTU, has noted with concern that there is a serious dispute between the opposition political parties and ZEC over the printing, storage, and distribution of the ballot papers, as well as discrepancies in the voters' roll. If these issues are not resolved, the outcome of these elections are going to be rejected, and this will plunge the country into another serious conflict, even an implosion. Already the issue of postal voting has had challenges, with junior officers allegedly voting in the presence of their superiors. People's confidence in ZEC has waned after access to personal data by ZANU-PF, which it used to send text messages. ZEC is now perceived as partisan and arrogant. It has lost credibility big time. No meaningful voter education has been done by ZEC. Although there appears to be peace in the country, there is covert violence and intimidation which is not easy to prove. Some people are being reminded of the violence that followed the 2008 June presidential runoff. There are also reports that soldiers in civilian clothes have been deployed in rural areas. The role of traditional leaders in rural areas is placing a serious headache for free and fair elections, as they are working closely with ZANU-PF. Chiefs were given cars and are constantly being given gifts, and these are clear vote-buying tactics in order for them to frog march their subjects to polling stations and vote for ZANU-PF. Although the introduction of the biometric voter register was welcomed as progressive. It is unfortunate that it was being used to intimidate, threaten, and instill fear in the rural areas. People were forced to submit their serial numbers of their registration slips. Some were told that the pictures and fingerprints taken would be used to check whom they have voted for. The public media is still close to other opposition political parties, save for token coverage during news hour. The ruling party is getting over 70% coverage than the opposition parties. A number of senior ZANU-PF leaders have openly declared that they will never allow the country to be led by any other party. The ZCTU reminds Zimbabweans that the war of liberation was fought because of, among other issues, the right to one man, one vote. It was hoped that those who directed the liberation struggle would deliver change and freedom to the people of Zimbabwe. What has been happening over the years on the electoral field negates all this, more so after November 2017 promises. We therefore call upon international and regional observers to take particular notice of these electoral malpractices, which hinders the achievement of free, fair, and credible elections. In addition, we call upon regional and international bodies such as SADC, AU, and UN to impress upon the authorities the importance of credible elections and peace. These bodies must also take note of the potential conflict these elections pose and prepare for the security of the people of Zimbabwe. Although the levels of electoral malpractices highlighted above seriously impairs the credibility of the elections, we observe that citizens and workers are eager to exercise their right to vote. Many believe that this is our chance to attain total freedom from liberators who have turned against the people. It is our hope that ZEC will still be pushed to at least avoid any further actions that further discredit the process. The ZCTU also believes that the reasons which led it in leading the formation of the MDC still exist. We have gone through all political parties' manifestos, and it is our considered view that workers should consider to vote for a party that provides workers with a sound basis for achieving what was set during the Working People's Convention. We, however, understand that the most important objective of all citizens desiring development and progress is a real change in the governance of this country. This requires that there be a new government which should establish good governance practices and respect of human and trade union rights. Winning the presidency should therefore be a key focus in these elections in order to drive this change agenda. The ZCTU General Council, the highest decision-making body in between Congress, met on Monday, 23 July 2018, and clearly noted that the current military-backed government cannot be expected to solve the country's problems. We also believe that a party with pro-labor policies and background is the best foot forward. We had fantastic interactions with a number of political parties whom we invited and who attended our labor forum around the country. Although we value the contributions of other political parties and presidential candidates, in our view, the MDC Alliance provides a realistic chance for achieving the change we all want. We therefore call on all workers and Zimbabweans in general to come out in their numbers and vote for change. This can only be feasible if we all rally behind one candidate who has a real chance of winning against the incumbent. In our considered view, this is Nelson Chamisa of MDC Alliance. We kindly ask our members, workers, and citizens to spread this message by convincing all our relatives and friends across the country to vote for change by voting for Nelson Chamisa of MDC Alliance. We also encourage workers and citizens to vote for a number of trade union leaders and activists who are vying for council, parliamentary, and senatorial seats across the country. This is important in order to bring back people-centered decision-making consciousness in all our governance processes. We also call upon the workers and Zimbabweans in general to safeguard and defend their vote through any peaceful means possible. Finally, 30 July has been declared a national holiday, and all employers are compelled to release their workers to go and vote. The ZCTU takes exception to employers who deny workers their right to vote. I thank you for your attention.